super glad to be here amidst a lot of creatives like us. So, like she has said, my name is Uteno Achor David. I went to Ahmadu Bello University. I studied physics, but years after, found myself becoming a storyteller. So what I'm about to do today is more of the real me, who I am from the inside of me. I want to share the truth about what I do, what is supposed to be, and how people are supposed to do it. So the mastering the art of storytelling for social impact and advocacy. So I started my journey into storytelling in 2017. Um, at that time, I started shooting in church. I loved cameras, wanted to just be a part of something that works. So I joined the church media team and then started shooting church services, events, and all of that. But, it got boring for me. I needed something much more. But I didn't have the access to my personal camera. So after school in 2017, I saved up after service, came back home, bought my first camera, a Canon 550D. A lot of cinematographers or equipment people will know how that is. So without much experience, I was self-taught, YouTube, and jumped into a tour with some of my friends to three West African states, precisely Togo, Benin Republic, and then Ghana. But I had a camera in my hand, but without knowing the power of what to do, no plan, no understanding of ISO, shutter speed, and I captured rubbish all through my 2 weeks of, traveling around West Africa in those three states. But while I was doing that, my friends kept asking me, what do you want to be known for? You're a photographer. And I kept telling them, I don't know. I'll just keep shooting. At that time, I was shooting weddings and events just for the money. But I know deep inside me, I wanted something much more. I needed something that would contribute to shaping my country, shaping people, because I have been doing that in my own little way while I was in the university. So along the line, I jumped into documenting, natural activities, people, daily lives. And then for me, it was something that moved me, So yeah, I'll go straight. What is storytelling? Introduction. Stories have the power to change the world. Yeah, we have heard a lot of stories. In fact, gossips are stories. If you go on all social medias, the trending things that are really people really pay attention to are gossips. And what are these gossips? They are stories. And now I'll give you a few insights to what we're doing or to what we're saying. Now, I have some facts from a site I drew, few weeks back while I was researching for this summit. There are about 5,500 films produced in Africa per year. Yeah, 5,500 films produced in Africa per year. And then 3,400 of these films are from West Africa. 5,500, 3,400 are from West Africa, and then 1,005 of these movies are from East Africa. Just imagine the wealth of stories that are going around. And then, the majority of the stories going around in West Africa are, they said, most of them are from the local low budget film industries like those Igbo films, Yoruba films. But I'm just trying to tell you that how people are invested in storytelling, how people are invested in sharing and, documenting things. Yeah, so stories have the power to change the world, and it has been doing that. Lots of amazing documentary photographers and cinematographers have done great films. Films like, if you have watched the man who harnessed the wind. I watched that movie and I saw the power of documentary. I saw the power of how people can change their world by just telling stories. That film, if you've not watched it, you should try and watch it. Now, this photo right here you're seeing was captured in Kaduna, where I reside. There's a popular market known as Panteka. I went there on a research because I'm a climate activist, and I was doing a research around recycling of plastic waste and metallic waste. And then this guy jumped into my frame. And then in my head at that time, I captured this. And the story was, who is this guy to a lot of people when I was doing my edit? To some people, this guy is a loser. He's selling roasted dried dates and tiger nuts. To some people, this guy is a loser. To some people, this guy is a victor. To his family, this is the source through which he feeds them. So stories, it's dependent on how you present them. Like our first speaker said, the narrative in which you present them, it determines how far it's going to go. So I'll move to my slide 2. So we're talking about social impact. Now, what is social impact? Social impact can be defined as the effect on people and communities that happens as a result of action or inaction, an activity, project, or program or policy. A lot of us in Nigeria, I'll use that as a case study, we fold our arms and think that things will just take shape on its own without us taking action, without us being involved in a particular program, without us being involved in a particular activity, and we fold our arms thinking things would take shape. But no, social impact here means that there are things we need to do to harness or propel things to happen. And then this is where storytelling comes in. So if you want to achieve social impact, if you want to be a part of something that works, you need to take action. And these actions are in different form. So in terms of filmmaking, documentary photography, or storytelling, you need to take action. You need to document stories. You need to tell these stories so that people can see, and then you move them into taking action so that things can change, things can happen, and then policies can be changed. So moving forward, what is advocacy? Remember, our topic is storytelling for social impact and advocacy. Gladly, the goal of social advocacy is to promote inclusion, encourage and initiate social change. It aims to empower people to exercise their rights and to enhance their well-being. This is well explanatory, but I'll use this story, this photo on my slide as an example. A lot of us here might not know, but this is Toka Magbaro, a popular film director, award-winning film director. In October, this photo was taken by me in October 2020 during the NSAS protest in Kaduna. I happened to be in Kaduna, and I went out with my camera and I saw Toka, and I was like, this is interesting. If a whole filmmaker, a popular one for that matter, will come out and do this, then it's worth doing. I had a video of him, interviewed, and he was talking. Why? He knew the power he had. He knew how important his voice was, and he came out. So the goal of advocacy actually is to promote inclusion. The protest in 2020 was all about ending police brutality and, the NSAS, all of things. So people were fighting, they were oppressed. They needed to be liberated. And then when they came out, people needed to document this story. And then for me, I have a slogan that says, if it was not documented, then it never happened. So, with this, there is proof that yes, a certain time, in Nigeria, Kaduna State precisely, there were young people who came out fighting for their right to be for their voices to be heard. And that is the importance of advocacy. Your stories should advocate for something. It could be for rights, it could be for well-being, it could be for inclusion, it could be, for the widespread of poverty or injustice and all of that. So this is what advocacy is all around. So going forward, storytelling for social impact and advocacy. Storytelling for social impact and advocacy is the strategic use of narratives to raise awareness, inspire action, and drive positive change. So what is the essence of your story? The essence of your story is to what? Drive positive change. And then the narrative in which you bring that story is what matters most. Our first speaker and second speaker touched a little around these things. So whatever you're saying, whatever picture you're putting out there, whatever film you're putting out there should be strategically placed. The narrative should be strategic. Now, this photo here was taken also in Kaduna by me at the Central Market in Kaduna during the cash crunch. Yes, when there was this money issues in Kaduna, and then we went around interviewing women and petty traders, and then turned while I was doing my thing, saw this lady selling, bean cake. They call it kuli kuli in Nigeria. And, with her phone, she wasn't happy, but she needed to come out. At this point, these traders were not interested in, bank transactions. But they had to adapt. They took it. Now, the narrative here is not to show that she's selling something like this. No, the narrative here for me was resilience. She was out no matter what the economy was saying, the problem of no cash. She came out, she was willing, and you could see her face, So for some people, the narrative here may be negative. They might just want to show that this woman is suffering and this is what she's selling and this is how she makes her money. No. For me, the narrative here was this is a young woman, resilient, and despite the odds, she came out and she wants to make a living. Possibly she has 4 or 5 children at home. Possibly she has a mother, old woman at home, and they need this money. She came out despite, the odds to make a living. So the narrative is very important. I'll move to my next slide. Identifying your message and audience. Yeah, this amazing photo was taken by me in Jigawa in 2022 during the World Bank project and FMAN project for farmers that are farming wheat. This was a very popular farmer in Jigawa. He farms one of the biggest. He has one of the biggest farms in Jigawa, and then these are kids also in Jigawa. Now, what is the now? What is my message here? Now, this is a farmer and these are kids in the village. They're happy. And then farming here is productive because, a group of experts were brought to Jigawa to train these farmers on sustainable farming. And then after farming, this was their harvesting seasons. I guess this man made over 200 and something bags of harvest, and then these are kids. When we went around, documenting stories, they saw us and they were happy. Now, the message here is about happiness. It's about victory. It's about success. It's about poverty alleviation because these people have found a way to sustainably farm what? Wheat. And it is very productive for them, And so the message here and your audience is very important in your storytelling journey. And then also this way, women. Now this story here is very important for me because every frame for me is a story. Now this photo at my left was what gave me an award with the World Food Program. While we were on the journey in Jigawa, while they were harvesting, we were passing. I saw these women who were farming. Now my narrative here, the psychology here was not just to capture women, doing farm jobs and all of that. No, the narrative here was for me is nobody is talking about women in agriculture. These are aged women who are contributing massively, to the agricultural sector, and they were doing these things, singing happily, making fun of, just having fun, and then, bagging these things, happily. And then I talked to myself and said, how many women are like this in different regions in Africa? This story needs to be shared. These people need to be seen, and then their story needs to be told. And then in the other end here, this was a woman that, she was just scrapping the remains from the wheat farm, and then possibly she's going home to use them for food, And then for me here, it was not a story of a suffering woman. It's a story of a resilient woman. If you look at it closely, if you zoom in, you'll see that she has a baby in her back, at her back, and then she has a calabash in her head, of the grains she has fetched from the remains that were, left in the farm. So this is a story of resilience, a story of perseverance, and a story of what? Of victory. Despite all odds, she decided to be alive and to make a living from whatever comes of it. So the power of and understanding the power of stories and the psychology of storytelling. So it's a matter of angle and narrative, compelling narratives. Also, these are all narratives. The first photo here was taken in during the 2020 NSAS protest, and then this was the second photo was of a young teenage boy who became a metal worker. They recycle metal waste, turn them into ovens, refrigerators, in that same market, in Panteca recycling market. And then the last photo here is a story that just tells, about the green nature of Kaduna, where they have lots of great farmers, good farming conditions also, on our way to document a story. I saw this site, a fishing boat, a pond of rice where they farm rice, and I decided to take that story. But in this story, this photo, I called it life and death, because in this place there is a sinking boat already in here, and there is one that is still alive, and around it you have green nature, which shows that in this place there is life and death. Some things will die, some things from that death will come alive. So that's my narrative around this. So the next one, also a compelling narrative. These two photos are very amazing photos. The first one is about a village kid where we went to Jaba, to document about water scarcity and all of that. So I saw this kid and he was drinking water, and I told him that, can I take his photo? We asked for consent, and then took this photo. The aim of this photo was not to show that the boy is suffering or anything, but you could see the settings of the place. It's an amazing story that promotes the importance of water. Train up a child, when you train a child, you train a community, so water is important. And then when I saw this scene, I decided that this story was going to make it. And then, Canon called me up for this photo, and they bought this photo and they used it for one of their publications. It's an amazing photo. And then on this other end is a story about, environmental pollution, how plastics and improper waste disposal is polluting our rivers, killing. Now, I took this photo after in 2022 after a flood in Kaduna State, and then I went out to document stories, and then I realized that this was happening, and then the government were not aware. Possibly they were, but maybe people were not telling this story. So I went, and then the river, the entire space, the entire community was polluted because the river got filled up, flushed back, the whole waste back into the community, into houses, into churches, into mosques. And nobody was telling these stories. The fishermen in this community could not even fish because there were no fish in the river, because everything was polluted. To the rivers, to the community, to everything was polluted. So I needed to talk about this story, to call the necessary people that could make something happen around this community. And that was why I documented this story. Next is, the first photo here was one of the photos I took on my tour in Ghana. This is Cape Coast in Ghana, but why did I put these two stories together? There's a narrative about Africa that we have been working on, about we telling our stories, despite the fact that, yes, we have cities. Now, I did the first photo versus the second photo, with the narrative that, yes, we have pollution, we have everything like this, but we still have other areas that are clean. And fruitful, and then a lot of good activities are happening. So these are all around narratives. So rather than telling bad stories, you could choose to tell good stories. But that doesn't mean that the bad things are not happening, but you should just know the way you could project these stories and to the audience you're projecting it to. So I'm going straight now into elements of storytelling. So our first and second speaker have touched around this. We talked about compelling narratives. We talked about characters, people who you are filming, and then we talk about plot. We talk about settings, and we talked about conflict. Now these are very important elements to telling a story. That was why I used this young girl in this photo. Went to Castina to document a story about women, HHID, household income generation, found this young girl who wasn't happy, and interviewed her, got to know, and then she was out of school, and took a photo of her, and then she's an interesting, character in my story while we were documenting that story. So in all of this, these elements are very important. You need to find conflict, what is the actor or your protagonist fighting against, the settings, where is the story happening, like I said, this was taken in Castilla, and then the plot, the scenes that are happening one after the other, and then we have a character, and then compelling narratives. And then storytelling. In storytelling, there are very important things you need to know. You need to have vivid imagery. Our second speaker talked about equipment and all of that. In as much as people don't really pay attention to it, but it is really important with the competition and type of qualities that are out there. If you really want to get proper engagement, you need to make sure that your image is good, to lighting, to quality, then emotional appeal, how your stories, relate, how people accept, how it moves with their emotions. So the essence of storytelling or photos is actually to stir emotions, so if your stories are not triggering any emotions, then you need to check your technique or your story. Then it has to be relatable. I can't be here and tell a story about Russia because I'm not in Russia. I can't relate to what is happening. I can only have an idea of what is happening. So your stories need to be relatable. You need to know what is happening. You need to, in a way, be in that space to tell the proper story. So it has to have vivid imagery. It has to have emotional appeal. It has to be relatable. So a very good story, a very good attention to the technique, to your techniques will help, captivate your audience. Then authenticity, like I said, I can't be in Nigeria and tell a story about Russia. No, it has to be authentic, right? So this was a story we took about plastic recycling and pollution in Kaduna. I did this with a fellow from one organization. They were documenting around this. So we went around looking for people who do plastic recycling, buy plastics and all of that. So your story needs to be original, so it has to come from a place where you have prior experience or you are even staying. It has to be real. If not, your audience won't trust you. People watching your or buying into your idea won't trust you possibly in your next story. Then distribution. Our second speaker also talked about distribution. Now, why I chose this was a photo I also took during NSAS. If NSAS didn't create the network of distribution they had at that time, I tell you, the campaign wouldn't have survived, but there was vast, campaign around every social media network, so they chose the right distribution channel because people could participate physically, people could participate online. So it is what you choose for your distribution that really, that can help amplify the voice of whatever you're trying to talk about. It could be, policy. It could be, about climate change. It could be around, human trafficking. So whatever platform you choose, you need to choose the right distribution channel. And right here, I just gave an example. You could use Instagram, LinkedIn for starters, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. You could use any of these platforms as your first before you can go into, possibly have funding for paid, distribution. The collaborations and partnership, it is very important. In my first days of my storytelling, I thought, I could do it alone. I was working alone, and I was slow. I wasn't getting the traction I needed. In fact, I had to learn how to volunteer. That was where partnership came into play. So as an onboarding storyteller, don't think everything is about money. Yeah, money is important, but I did free gigs. I went to organizations, wrote my intention to volunteer with them, and they gave me audience. I showed my skill, and then 2-3 of them called me back, hired me for a gig or for a project, and we went on the field. So you need to collaborate with people, you need to partner with people, you need to volunteer for free. If you need to, you need to do personal projects, so you can build your portfolio. And so partnering with like-minded organization influencers can help amplify the reach and impact of your storytelling. That's well said. So after all of this, after packaging your whole story and distributing, you need to evaluate. You need to evaluate every step you take in your storytelling journey. Evaluation is key. You need to get feedback. You need to hear what's going on. You need to hear the impact of what you are doing. I'll always use the NSAS protest, story. What they did, uh, moved policies. It changed a lot of things in Nigeria, right? So I'm sure at that time, people didn't evaluate, but some of us were evaluating. Okay, at the end of this, what did this result to? So for whatever story you're telling, you should be able to evaluate at every step. What is my result? What am I getting? Do I need to change strategy? Do I need to do something else? It's going to help in your storytelling journey. Now, like I said, when I captured the story on the flood and plastic pollution in Kaduna, and we started making noise around it. 2 organizations I partnered with saw the story and picked it, and they wrote to the government of Kaduna State, KEPA, all the people in charge of environmental waste. So for me, that story was a win when I went to capture the river with plastic pollution, because it moved policy. It brought people to action. The necessary organizations, the heads that were supposed to take care of these things, we got their attention, and then they moved it, they swung into action, started looking for how to clean up, started looking how to place policies around the community that will, properly manage waste, so measuring impact. So that story brought me to this, and then I saw that yes, it was useful, the story was impactful, and all of that. So my next is continuous improvement. You need to learn to improve. When you get your feedback, you need to learn to improve. When you do any story, when you shoot any photo, you show it to people who are advanced, they could advise. And then when you put it out there, pay attention to what people are saying, pay attention to what they are saying, how they are saying it, what you need to improve on. You need to continuously improve, because these communities, there is a way you engage them. This was me and a boy in one of the communities. I shot a story in Katsina State, and when I went back, they were all happy to see me. Why? Because they saw that the story about them I gave out there was positive, and it brought positive change to their community, and then I was always welcome back into that community. So you need continuous improvement. You need to improve in your storytelling skill, your strategy, and everything you're doing around your storytelling. So in conclusion, storytellers must be careful when framing and communicating stories in the public. It is essential to keep in mind that we are not the saviors of an individual or community. Still, we are catalysts through which partners and participants can gain knowledge, obtain resources, and find a network to support from people and the environment necessary to do the necessary. So like I said, as a storyteller, when you go into a community because you're doing a social work or you're advocating for something, you don't project yourself as their savior. In fact, they might ask you for some things. There's a rule that you shouldn't promise them, right? But you should tell them you will look into it. Don't project yourself as the savior. Don't make them look as the victim and all of that. That's what they call poverty porn. There's how you project people that make them look like victims. Like if you're dealing on cases of gender-based violence, rape and all of that. Some of those people won't even come out plainly. They don't want their faces to be shown. So you need to learn how to strategically tell these stories, right? So you don't project yourself like you are the almighty, you have come to save them and alleviate them from their poverty, but you need to find way in which you make them know that they are the ones to do these things together. You have just come to help, in achieving this goal. Yeah. So at best, storytelling has the power to move people to action, inspire hope, influence connection and change, and highlight the strengths and dignities that can be found within communities and humanity at large. At worst, stories can sensationalize, stereotype, marginalize, and cause harm to those we serve. So we need to be careful how, where, and why we tell our stories. If we're doing stories for impact, you need to know how to do it. You need to be sure of your strategy. You need to be sure of the goals. You need to be sure of the people you are working with. You don't work with any kind of people. They are strategic people who are in the space. I can't bring a music producer to work with me on set for a documentary work. He might have experiences, but he might not be able to, uh, do some of the things, get the sounds right, get the imagery right and all of that. Yes. So that's why we need to work with the right people so that we get this thing. So when a story is properly told, it's going to stir the right emotions, it's going to give you the right feedback and all of that.